Good evening. Welcome to the Lowell Conservation Commission meeting of May 9th, 2018. We'll call the meeting to order. And we have first order of business is continued business, a request for determination of applicability by Butte Hydropower, 100 Blackstone Square, Andover, Mass., but the project location is near 16 Varnum Avenue in Lowell. A request has been filed by Butte for tree and branch removal at the bank of the Merrimack River as part of the Lowell Hydroelectric Project. Is there anyone here for Butte Hydropower? Yeah. Would you introduce yourself, please? Welcome.
Surely. My name is Skip Medford, like you said, from Butte. Happy to be here, and I'm ready to answer any questions or description of the problem and how we propose to resolve it.
Okay. Why don't you state what you would like to do?
Included in the RDA was a photo of a tree that over the years has grown and is now overhanging the fish ladder on Varnum Ave. The fish ladder is at the north end of the Pawtucket Dam. So we do operate the fish ladder seasonally. We're in seasonal operation right now, as a matter of fact. And the overhanging tree has been identified by our partners among the natural resource agencies, Fish and Wildlife Service specifically, to be removed as an impediment to fish passage. So, we'd like to take care of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be good to have a lot of leaves build up inside the zigzag area there, I'm sure.
Leaves, branches, even shading can affect passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't see any problem with that tree being trimmed back, or is it a trim or is it a complete removal that you're recommending?
I haven't visited the site myself since last spring. Our crews will make the best determination. It's a difficult spot to access, so if it's hard to get a ladder and go 30 feet up, they may elect to take the safer route, which is entire tree. Mm-hmm. The branches look to be overhanging, but to get at them might be a real challenge.
Yeah, well, you don't want to leave the tree unstable and weighted one way or the other. And
yeah, and
you'll have problems in the future.
Yeah. It's a steep bank there.
I in my mind, the important thing is to remove the materials that you cut off so that they don't end up further downstream in the fishway.
Yep, and that's one of our proposed methods is, I think I specified that we would remove debris, including the cut tree parts. So
this is basically pretty much handwork, or do you intend to have some kind of a crane like you do to remove debris on the other side?
I don't believe any crane is going to be feasible there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's going to be manual labor.
Okay, it's pretty dry tonight. I just came by there and but there was water in the fishway I was happy to see.
Yep.
So
we are operating it. River flow is 12,000 CFS, which is it's about normal for this time of year. And the ground conditions are dry, but the streams and rivers are flowing full.
Are you holding it back up north? Is that?
We'd like to say we could, but we can't.
Oh, that's what we always blamed the fact that it went low. Oh, they're holding it up north.
Yep. Yeah. The Army Corps does a good job. We're appreciative of them, and I'm sure Lowell, Lawrence, Haverhill, and Newburyport are also.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious about the fish ladder. Is that, now that you've changed the dam, is that something that you open and close as well, or is it always open?
The fish ladder.
Yes.
The fish ladder is open seasonally. So if I had to give a general approximation, May 1st to July 15th. And we may extend it longer as we try to, with our partners, Mass Fish and Wildlife, Mass Marine Resources, New Hampshire Fish and Game, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, et cetera, We may go for a longer operation.
So it is essentially only for migrating fish? You don't expect
Yes.
anything else to
Yes.
use it?
Yeah, it was designed and we operate it for upstream migrants only. We have a downstream passage facility at our plant on Pawtucket Street by the university.
Now, are they swimming up through there, or are you still elevating them?
We're doing both. We're doing both.
I'm just curious. I know
Yeah.
this is a little off the subject, but
Yeah, I'll admit it's fascinating. The project was designed with both a fish elevator and a fish ladder, and we're still operating both. You may have been aware we are just entering relicensing right now, and I'm sure the city, will be afforded comment and opportunity to participate. But the relicensing is where we, the community stakeholders, get to prescribe operation and needs for the next decades. So that is
is that a public
present.
meeting?
Excuse me?
Is that going to be a public meeting?
Yes.
And where would that be held?
We're just planning it now, but I think the most public opportunity will occur in mid or late July this year, when facility tours, scoping documents, project descriptions, proposed mode of operation will all be provided to anyone who wishes. And
I hope that's advertised well, because I know quite a few people that'd be fascinated to do
Mhm.
that. So,
Understandably, and another person in my office is handling it, but I believe the city is already well involved and certainly is receiving relicensing material, as a stakeholder and as a partner in the project.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you for diverging off the topic a little bit.
that's all right.
I'll open this up to the commission here for questions.
I don't have any questions. I think this is a project that we could easily offer a motion to issue a -3 determination. So I'll save that for when we close this part of the meeting, but
Okay,
that will be my
let's see
recommendation.
who else.
I don't have any questions. I find that the application is well documented and many sources, resources that well covered. And share it.
There we go.
Right.
No comments from me.
No comments from me either. I think it should be all set.
Okay, I think this is a necessary improvement, the trimming back of that tree, and I just wanted to be sure that the public that had an interest in it could hear about it before it happened, and so that was the reason for putting you off. I'm sorry we didn't meet last time, but the tree is still there, I take it, and waiting for your care.
Yep. Well, thank you very much. The tree hasn't fully, leaved out yet, and Fish Passage is just starting, so we're going to hopefully act on it quickly and make the best outcome. Like I say, we run until about July 15th there on the ladder.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you're going to leave the water low for a while there, or it will be low for a while, or isn't that a factor in getting in there?
No. Water level, not a factor right there.
Okay.
Low is a very subjective term.
Fair point.
Okay, I think
All
we
right,
have a motion.
I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
And I'll second it.
Seconded, motion made and seconded for -3, and we have the proposal as it came from the proponent, so I don't think we need any further conditions on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, and the office will have a document for you, probably almost instantly, right? The way you get the minutes out these days.
Hopefully quickly.
Right. Okay, moving on to a notice of intent by Hancock Associates in care of Commons Wealth LLC, 265 State Street, Springfield. This is DEP numbers 2060780. The project location is 1857.1 Middlesex Street. A notice of intent has been filed on behalf of Commons Wealth for Collegiate Charter School. The proposed activities include expansion of the existing building, additional parking, and stormwater management. The proposed work will be conducted in the 100-foot buffer of a bordering vegetated wetland associated with the Merrimack River and isolated land subject to flooding. Welcome.
Good evening.
Introduce yourself, please.
For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. So we're here before you today on behalf of the Collegiate Charter School of Lowell. And just to give a little background, this project's been around for a number of years now. We've started in 2013 for permitting the original proposed school, which was a K through 8. And actual construction began on the site in 2015 with a slightly different school configuration. Still K through 8, still parking and whatnot.
Excuse me, is that microphone on? Is the light on?
Is the light on?
I think it is.
Okay.
Not that one. Swallow. There we go. How's that?
That's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So construction began in 2015 with the school that's out there today. It is K through 8, and that was permitted under a separate order of conditions. On-site resource areas are 100-foot buffer associated with the Merrimack River and isolated land subject to flooding. Now, the Merrimack River, just to orient yourself, is here. Then there's a set of railroad tracks, and then this is the existing building as it stands today. This is going to be proposed phase 2, and the isolated land subject to flooding is at the southern kind of middle portion of the parcel. Originally, stormwater management was proposed for phase 1 with 2 porous pavement parking lots, in addition to some structural best management practices. All of those features have been installed and as built according to plan, and the city has records of that. So tonight, before you with phase 2, the grades 9 through 12 expansion, we have a new parking lot, a new building situated to the left of the current school. And there's also a secondary parking aisle on the entrance side, which is right here. So impacts with respect to phase 2 revolve around 100-foot buffer on the parking lot, and then isolated land subject to flooding. We're filling about 1,765 cubic feet. We're proposing to mitigate that with the use of 4-foot diameter ADS pipe. So essentially, a retaining wall is going to be constructed, parking lot on top, and pipes are going to penetrate the retaining wall to create an unrestricted flow and compensatory volume for the alteration. In that area, we, as a part of phase 1, we were proposing a wetland seed mix kind of throughout near the ILSF. We're altering about 50 square feet of the ILSF proper in addition to that compensatory storage volume. And we're proposing to replace that essentially with the same sort of seed mix in the same area. Stormwater management for the parking lot aspect of this is going to be done through catch basins and underground infiltration chambers. So StormTech SC 310s are proposed for that. So I guess in summary, we have limited buffer zone impacts associated with the parking lot, and then primarily the ILSF alteration with proposed compensatory storage mitigation. I know that was brief, but I'm happy to answer questions, anything about the history, the permitting of this, and obviously what's currently proposed.
Well, you did mention that you were here only a couple of years ago, I believe, for the first phase, and I was just curious how the drainage is working so far with just that phase.
Good. So it's working as it was intended to work, essentially. So the building roof, its roof leaders are tied into the reservoir course of the porous pavement. They're two generally large paved areas. So there was a lot of opportunity to create infiltration and recharge, and it's working according to plan.
What is the groundwater level basically on that site?
So groundwater on the site is around elevation 39 ballpark, so it's about 2 feet down from the ILSF elevation. And the reason why we proposed porous was because of the cross-section of it. It allowed us to get our offset to groundwater as required by stormwater management standards, and then just keep a very reduced profile to limit the amount of import of material. When we designed phase one, we always knew that there was going to be a high school, hopefully permitted on that site. So we created placeholders, if you will. So we tied in and stubbed out 12-inch pipes going into the porous reservoir course, so we could ultimately discharge any future site improvements through these practices and, again, kind of mimic what was the historic condition.
So will the new systems kind of enhance the old system, or they work together?
It's an extension of more than anything. So what we did on our drainage calcs, which have been fully vetted by the previous city engineer, interim city engineer, as well as Lowell Wastewater, we added on to the original design, essentially, so we could model everything that was proposed in phase one and then incorporate phase two.
Okay, I know we have some drainage experts here that probably want to say something.
So has the city, do we have a city engineer right now?
We don't currently have a city engineer. We, of course, have people in the engineer's office.
Yeah.
But not currently a city engineer.
Okay, so do we have any comments from the city?
Sorry.
Brian? Yeah.
We went into permitting back in September of last year, so we went to planning board first. So at that point in time, Mr. Bostonetto was the interim city engineer, and he and his team did review it, as well as Mike Stewart at Lowell Wastewater, and they offered their comments, and they're in the city files, and all comments have been addressed.
Okay, so both Mike and Nick had comments, and you've addressed them all?
Yes.
Okay. And then where are we at with the other permit? Did we issued a order of conditions. Is that still open?
It is still open.
So this is an additional notice of intent?
It is a second notice of intent, kind of separating the two filings. So
Okay.
there's housekeeping items that are still out primarily, like the athletic field's not done. There's some cleanup that needed to be done. Some of the compensatory storage is a part of that project. It's all been graded, but now this is kind of a second layer of that.
Okay.
So I guess the short answer, yes, the vast majority of that work is done.
Yeah.
We're not requesting a COC on it yet, and
Okay.
that we're going to be requesting COCs at the same time for both of these.
Okay. And you're going to hate this, but I remember last time, I think there were some residents that weren't happy with the drainage. Has that all been squared away? Okay.
So if you want me to go through the history on that.
Yeah.
It was this condo association essentially had some water that was coming off of during construction, kind of interim condition. When the pavement was put down and the porous was actually installed, it solved this problem. And then the project proponent offered up cleanup and fence repair. That was also kind of, they had some concerns about. So all of those items have been addressed.
Okay. And people are happy? Okay. Yeah, I have no further comments.
So if I understand correctly, the new drainage features are gonna more or less be a tie-in to the existing So it's not a completely separate system, it's all,
It's separate to the degree that this underground system is completely independent of the porous, but its ultimate point of discharge is through the porous pavement reservoir course into the isolated land subject to flooding. So they are separate systems, but that point of discharge creates
they
the
have a
link
common
between-
discharge point. Okay.
Exactly.
No, no further comments. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward project. Thanks.
I have no questions.
I just had one comment about the replication area. I was looking at the latest aerial after a lot of the construction and the pavement went down, and it looks like that area is pretty flooded. So I think that maybe they're on the, is it the northern side or southern side of that area, kind of in like the corner. It might be a better place to do that replication.
Oh, to shift it over to maybe this side over here?
Yeah, it looks like elevation there is like 41, which is actually below the ILSF area. So it might make more sense to do that.
We can certainly shift it. Again, that whole area is kind of holistically receiving that treatment with the seed mix, and it was regraded as a part of phase 1. So as we get into it and do this construction, we can certainly shift it to that side. I don't see that being an issue.
So this will be the, essentially probably the last phase, the second and the last, because there's no more space left for parking or drainage or anything else from the looks of this plan.
Correct. The green space that you see kind of reserved on the east side is going to be the athletic field. So that's really the only other piece that needs to be installed after phase 2. And then the charter school, the charter from the state is 1,200 students. That's what this represents. So the state charter is dictating 1,200 students, K through 12, and then this is the final phase of that.
Okay, so we're not going to have a phase 3 where you pave over the athletic fields or anything like that?
I'm not anticipating that, a high school without a field. There's actually a part of the special permit issued by the planning board that the city of Lowell gets opportunities to use the athletic field for various rec activities, so it's not going anywhere.
Is there enough parking for staff?
There is.
There is.
So yeah, we've done all of our parking calcs. We've reached out to the operator of the school to really understand how many staff are going to be here, how many high school kids will get essentially passes to be able to park on site, and then further what the pickup drop-offs are going to be. So there's a lot of study with respect to traffic. There are intersection improvements to try to help flow in that area. So that was very comprehensively looked at.
And then if this gets approved tonight, when would you break ground on this?
So we're in the process of generating construction docs right now. The first step is to get Helical, which is a geopier company, in to stabilize the earth essentially for the 3-story new building, and that would be looking to start next month.
So will it be a bid for the geotech and then a bid for the building?
They're already, they're basically,
two
they're gonna be
different.
separate. So they're trying to pull building permits for the foundation basically now.
Yeah.
And then immediately go for the rest of the building. And
Okay.
then construction, that geotech piece, the foundation piece, we anticipate next month.
Okay, so this summer? Okay,
Yeah, the
So-
construction window is very, very limited.
Yeah.
Because they have to be able to occupy that for the 9th grade class.
so you want this building up for fall?
For not the fall, the following fall.
Okay.
So, yeah, we got a
Like,
little
well-
bit over than a
Okay.
12-month window, which is surprisingly tight.
Is there anyone from the public here that would like to speak or ask questions? Either for or against? I can't see who's sitting behind the...
He's with me.
He's with him. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay,
Second.
motion made to close. Seconded by Bill. All those in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, and now, any more motions?
I'll offer a motion to approve the project with the issuance of a City of Lowell standard order of conditions.
Motion
With-
for a standard City of Lowell order?
Wait, with one condition, possibly shifting what we chatted about.
Yep, absolutely. And,
You got that, Jared, right? Okay,
Duly noted.
all right.
Okay, do we have a second for the motion to issue an order, standard order?
Okay, well, you second it, you're right.
Bonnie? Any discussion?
Nope.
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have, do we have any other new business, Jared? Wasn't there a tree planting or something?
Yes, not under new business, but under other business. We have the discussion for 1010 Westford Street.
Okay. I think we all got that proposal in our email this week about, this is a planting plan for the corner of, what's that, Stedman and Westford. They were repaving the parking lot. A few trees were taken down without permission, and so the planting is replacing those trees. They're proposing 3 birches, and I thought we had talked about having a few more roots than that in that bank because it's a fairly steep bank. I believe the stumps are supposed to remain, the stumps of the trees that were taken down. I'm not sure they're all still there, but unless they need to remove some of them to plant the new trees. I am hopeful that they will plant some shrubs in between the trees because only 3 trees are proposed in about a 50 or 60 foot distance there. I can't remember exactly how many feet that side along Blackbrook was. Do you have it there, Caitlin?
Yeah, it says 30 feet apart.
Okay, so I'm hoping that some shrubs of some sort or a complete ground cover of some sort that's going to be durable could be planted between the areas where the trees are. I don't know if anyone wants to propose anything specific, or if we want to let the applicant propose some sort of shrubs, but I think there should be something planted probably every 6 feet at least.
And so,
Private property that we're talking about?
This is a business property,
A
yes.
business property.
so what happened, we issued a -3 determination to Family Paving to pave. That was back in August 2017.
I believe there was a enforcement order at some point because they had taken down trees right
Okay.
on the bank of the brook.
And my understanding, according, just looking through the project file, is that it was unclear who had taken down the trees, but trees had been removed. And so that enforcement order was served, but also they came in for this RDA
For paving,
for paving specifically.
okay.
There was a condition in there about coming back for a landscaping plan and talk about the different trees and things that they would hope to plant in that space.
And this is where we're at?
Exactly.
Okay, and then is that enforcement order still open? Maybe?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
I think we closed it. on-
okay.
I think we were waiting for
Vision.
spring for the planting, so.
So
Spring
they're,
is
they're
here.
not giving us an RDA or anything, they're just giving us a planting plan?
Exactly.
Okay,
So this is like a condition of the RDA.
Condition of perhaps the
more
enforcement.
so of the enforcement order,
Enforcement, okay.
yeah. Okay, so the 3 trees that they're proposing, is that enough? You recommended 6 feet apart?
Well, the trees, I think, are going to be evenly spaced. How far apart do
I
they?
think there were a lot more than that.
I think they're,
removed.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm recommending, unless they want to put more trees, to put shrubs between the trees.
It says trees will be about 30 feet wide at full growth.
But they are birch trees, so the trunk will
It
be
won't be.
fairly skinny.
Too
It's
big.
not like an evergreen.
Okay,
Undergrowth
So-
could serve.
I don't know what the scale is.
I just felt that three root systems weren't enough for that slope, so
I think some shrubs wouldn't hurt, and even seed the area with some type of conservation mix would be a good idea.
You feel a seeding would be enough?
I didn't get a chance to look at this, what this area actually looks like other than this figure. Is it the parking lot right up to the bank, or is that like a maintained lawn area?
It's very close. It's within probably, the bank drops off, it's probably within 3 feet or 5 feet, very close.
Yeah, well, I think some shrubs, 2 or 3.
So from what I recall, I mean, we issued an enforcement order and then rescinded it with the understanding that the applicant of the RDA would submit a planting proposal, which they've done, but that is still subject to approval of the commission, correct?
That's the way I see it.
How many existing trees did they
So-
take down?
I think it was a lot more than
Probably
three.
a
It's a lot
dozen.
more than 3.
I think that it was
So-
almost double or maybe even more.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is, you know, the 3 trees is inadequate. We don't want to be prescriptive in terms of what they propose, but I think what I'm hearing is that we want more vegetation than that's what's currently proposed, giving them the flexibility to propose, you know, something with the understanding that whatever is proposed has enough root structure to hold the slope in place.
And I think another issue is it's a high probability that when the lot is plowed, that they will plow it in that direction. And so it's got to be something that's going to survive with
High salt.
perhaps snow and salt put on top of it. So I'm not sure it's just grass could withstand that.
I got the
Abuse.
old,
So since this is under other business, Jared, because it's something that you can just deliver back to the applicant and say, you know, what our expectation is?
Absolutely. I know that the applicant was hoping to get your, at least approval for those 3 trees so that they could hopefully plant them soon. I think that the
Yeah,
planting season is upon us.
I have no problem
but I
with
don't
the
think
3
that
trees. I don't
yeah.
know if anyone else has a
No,
problem.
I don't either.
So I don't think, and I don't think there's going to be an issue with
Like to see them put in
requesting.
as soon as possible, but there's going to be a lot of space between those 3 trees. And I think what we're saying is we'd like to see something else fairly durable planted there. And if we want to leave it up to the owner, that's fine. But in a year or so, I'd like to go back and see something thriving there, not something was planted and, oh dear, it didn't survive, you know, so.
so we have,
Yeah,
this happened in September 2017, and we have a memo saying, during a site inspection of the property, it was noted that multiple trees were cut, stumps remain along the brook on both sides of the brook. The property where the trees were removed is owned by the city of Lowell.
Okay.
I remember that.
And then we have pictures,
But I don't think we're asking him to plant on the city property. I think he does have a strip of unpaved area there.
so the stump's still there?
I think we'd like to specify that the stump should be remaining there. We had said that at the time of the emergency order,
Yeah.
the enforcement order. So we wouldn't like to see him digging out stumps and putting in trees, because that would just collapse that whole bank.
Which I think those stumps are on the city of Lowell property, so we shouldn't be
Yeah.
shouldn't be touching that anyway.
You know how that goes.
Yep. So, why don't we say, we recommend that the stumps remain, and are we all okay with 3 trees and 3 bushes?
It appears by the application that he has consulted professional help. Mahoney's recommend the Heritage River Bridge. So that is a plus in that person, the applicant's favor. And if he's doing that, perhaps Mahoney, he could go back to Mahoney's and suggest some understory, some kind of
Yeah.
low.
And I think that probably the trees will be guaranteed for a year at least, too, by
Right.
buying them there.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a plus, and he's just not putting something.
Right.
So I'm hearing 3 things, you know, retain the stumps in terms of message to give back to the owner, Jared. Complement the proposed trees with additional shrubs to you know, enhance the the stability of the slope and make sure whatever is chosen is tolerant of road salt or things related to plowing, and then verify that the vegetation is taken 1 year later.
Yep.
And the stumps to remain.
I don't know if it's.
I think that was the first
adding
thing
too
I
much
said.
On, but they could potentially seed the area too. I know there's a lot of like roadside salt tolerant mixes that are pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we're saying let's not be prescriptive and let them propose something that just meets a certain performance standard. In this case, the performance standard is it'll hold the soil in place, it'll be tolerant to salt.
And of course, it will not be an invasive.
Exactly.
Yeah. What they're proposing isn't cutting it.
Yeah.
We need more.
And maybe, Jared, for the next meeting, under other business, we can just get an update on the outcome, of that outreach.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we've covered that, up, down, and sideways. We have minutes, 2 sets of minutes. I don't know if we want to separate them or take them together. Does anyone have a motion on the minutes?
Has everyone reviewed them? I've reviewed them. They look fine to me.
Looked good?
Very
Actually, more than adequate.
Yes.
Excellent.
Fabulous.
I think we have a court stenographer
Too
in the
kind.
making.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes as written?
Seconded.
Seconded? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any other business?
I have something I'd like
Yes,
to
Bonnie.
discuss. The issue with the Wentworth Ave wetlands, we have 2 houses now that border that wetland strip that have been sold and purchased by new owners, not sure who they are, if they're from the area, and we may run into another problem with them trying to clean out the backyard of the brush and somehow that wetland area be affected again. There is a problem where the gentleman, I don't know the number, 293 or whatever, when last fall, when he did move the soil around there, this spring, the water changed its course and wrapped around like a U instead of going straight. And now it's all grassed in. See, so must have brought in some soil and filled it in, because one day it's a whole river and the next day it's all filled in with hydro seed. So I'm just thinking, if there's more new tenants coming in or people purchasing properties bordering that wetland, is there something that can be done? Do we have a resource or a target where we could contact the property owners that abut that strip of wetland and let them be aware of they can't be mowing their backyards or, removing that or filling it in?
This is something that's been a problem ever since I've been on the commission, and we do rely on neighbors and citizens to report things that they see that just don't look right as far as wetlands issues go. But if someone wants to spend, or we all should spend some time thinking about setting up some kind of a system within DPD perhaps, where there's kind of a double check. I know there used to be something with the building department where any property, we had a map that had properties that had wetlands on them, and if someone would come in with a proposal, they would be told that there's wetlands on your property. But a lot of people are totally unaware, and it really causes some situations that really could have been prevented had they known beforehand. So I don't know if there's any kind of different system in place. Jared, perhaps you could tell us.
Well, today we still would check with applicants if they're coming in, and the building department is very good about sending it down to us at the Conservation Commission to make sure that we are checking the GIS maps if they're near any wetlands, or if they're in the floodplain, or if they're in the buffer. So that's something that we are doing. And then if a building permit comes through, it is sort of automatically flagged based upon its proximity to those things, and that's something that we would check as well, even if they hadn't had that conversation with us first.
With that thinking, Jared, is there Is there like just a general fact sheet of, do's and don'ts when you live abutting a wetland? And to the extent we could borrow heavily off of maybe something like Mass DEP may already have, so we're not recreating the wheel. I'm just wondering if there's any of that type of outreach material, because I think to Bonnie's point, that would be helpful. That way we're being a little bit more proactive and less punitive.
We've already talked about this before, like how do we,
Right.
can we get it on people's deeds? Do we send out notifications when new people buy houses? Do we send out yearly notifications? Don't forget, you're in a floodplain, you can't cut down a tree, stuff like that. And we've talked circles around this, so I'm gonna answer that for you, there isn't. Yeah, so, but it is something that I think as a commission can further discuss and maybe throw some funds at that.
It's been brought to my attention by many of the neighbors or people that I know, and, it's like, well, people, you're the guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, but if
it
that's
happens
the ca-
everywhere,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if they really, I think to Jared's point, if they really think it's an issue, then they can call the city and send an environmental agent out there to verify.
You would think.
Well, 80% of our enforcement orders have been residents that had no idea that they were in a floodplain and they cut down a tree.
Right.
So when there's been multiple times that there's been single moms here crying
Right.
because they have an enforcement order, and I'm like, well, what can we do to avoid this? If it's.
Exactly.
But we don't have control over the real estate. It would be great when somebody bought, so then we've discussed, can we put it on somebody's deed? Especially when there's already been an enforcement order on their property, and then our past chair, who was a lawyer, there was no, so.
That's interesting, because actually, the city of Brockton, they have required applicants to record the order onto the deed itself. So anyone who would purchase the property down the line would see the NOI and have to sign it.
Well, if it's
That's
open,
different.
if it's open.
Yeah.
So when you buy a piece of property, you would know if a notice of intent was open on your property. But if it's been closed and there's a certificate of compliance, or if there's been an enforcement order that you took care of, you could go on the Registry of Deeds website and put in that address and see everything that's ever been recorded on that property. But who
No
knows,
one, no one
no one does that.
knows how to do that either.
Yeah. So there's just no, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure, like the condo associations, if you're building a development, that whole development needs to have a certificate of compliance before they can start selling properties off. So there's been times where the entire development couldn't get a certificate of compliance, and
Ask
we
for
need to sell,
partial.
they asked for partial in order to be able to start selling those properties. But yeah, it's,
I still think we've been most successful where we've had neighbors that are aware of the wetland issues in their neighborhood. And I know Pawtucketville is very strongly aware of their flooding problems and their wetland areas, and perhaps dealing with neighborhood groups a little more actively might be one way of educating people. And the people who attend the neighborhood meetings are usually pretty active in the neighborhood, and therefore probably are watching what's going on and perhaps could educate their neighbors as well.
That's a great answer for that. I can go back to them and say, neighborhood group.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think every neighborhood has a group at this point. I know some are more active than others, but, those are the people that are going to carry the message. We can't do it, just 5 of us,
Yeah, and I think people, they buy their house, they now are like, I have to buy flood insurance, why? You're in a floodplain, but they have no idea that they're not allowed to cut down that dead tree. No idea. Because it's a dead tree.
That's basically what had happened, but
Yeah.
it has changed the course of that wetland, and you can see water going onto other property now.
Yeah,
And Lowell is really complex. It's not like we just have one big lake in the middle.
yeah.
We have 2 rivers and I don't know how many brooks and swamps.
Isolated little
Right,
wetlands
right.
without, so, I mean, I am all for public education. So if we, as a board, wanted to come up with something, I'd be very pro that. Yeah.
Yeah.
To avoid a lot of these enforcement orders, because again, I think at a time, I really felt like 80% of them were innocent humans, and they were upset that they got slapped with an enforcement order, you know?
And I can understand that, and I think the same thing is if we could use, if we had some kind of an educational pamphlet or something that we could even give to the neighborhood groups, they'll get that word out there, because they're pretty active, those neighborhood groups, and
Yeah.
they're really, you know,
And-
and you can't blame the new owner, I understand that. Most of the properties being sold now is like a whole new generation, a whole new sector of people coming in, the diversity, and they're coming in from Revere and Brockton and Boston. They have no idea
Yeah.
in the city and the wetlands, and I understand it. So being kind of caught in the middle, somebody said, you know, can you do this, and what do? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh.
There's been a few times in Lowell that is, I remember it came on a nice piece of paper. I don't know if it was with the water or sewer bill, but it's just been like an FYI, like, you know, do this with your leaves. You can't recycle a pizza box if
Right.
it has grease on it. Just a
Right.
little FYI thing. That might be an option for us to get involved.
with the water
Put out, yeah, I'm pretty sure, I think it came with the water and sewer bill.
did.
Yeah, like it'll be like a nice
Yeah.
piece of paper that's a color, and it was, because I've actually, like used that.
That whole recycle when they
So,
start.
yeah, maybe we could somehow get a little block in there, like, hey, if you pay for flood insurance, did you know you can't do X, Y, and Z? Like, something that simple.
Just
You know,
bullets.
thank you
Yeah.
for addressing this. I appreciate it.
Okay, and if we see any interns for the summer that want a project, maybe that would
can
be a good
design-
idea.
design a little.
I don't know if the city hires any interns or not. but-
Yeah. And there's grant money out there, too.
Okay, so let's all put our thinking caps on and see if we can come up with any ideas of how to prevent violations of the wetlands.
Yep.
Okay, anyone else have any new business? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Caitlin, seconded.
Kevin?
Second, Kevin.
Kevin, good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night. Go
Night.
Celtics.
Oh, yes, go Celtics, wow.
When's this start?
Is the game tonight?
8 o'clock.
Eight.
8 o'clock.